Welcome to this episode, everyone. Subscribe now for more. Thousand Hand Nuo Mask, Annals of the Twin Fiends, Ghost Opera in Yin Mountain, Records of the Nuo Mask and the Sunken Coffin, Volume 1, The Mystery of the Mountain Ghost's Marriage. Chapter 1, The Night of the Funeral Cortege in Pagoda Tree Fragrance. As autumn rain mixed with the delicate scent of pagoda tree flowers seeped into his collar, Su Wangyan's leather shoe tips crushed the bluestones at the entrance of Yinshen village. The mountain god pagoda tree at the village entrance stood like a colossal spirit, its bark's natural human face patterns glowing dark red in the rain. Tree sap oozed from the scar on its right eye, trickling down the cracked Wenlu and splashing small blood red circles in the puddles. It was the 7th day after Chen Shixi's funeral, the last night of Yinshen's 7 nights of soul summoning. Brother Wangyan, Uncle Chen's paper doll is moving again in the window. Lin Yunyang's voice floated from the shadows of the pagoda tree. The hem of her white coat was stained with the unique red sand from the river bottom, and the 19 copper bells around her neck jingled softly with each step, their sound mingling with the dull scrape of stone coffins against the riverbed during the sinking ritual. She handed him a pagoda wood umbrella, its ribs carved with indistinct Nuo opera mask patterns, and the center of the canopy bore the faded sign, Shenhue Paper Making Shop. The shop Chen Xiaozi had guarded for 30 years, now emitting an eerie smell of burning paper ashes. The funeral hall was set up in a side room of the paper making shop's backyard. Chen Shixi's coffin was painted a fresh red, with a banwan of clear water placed at the head, 3 paper-made pagoda tree flowers floating on the surface. The roots of the petals were inscribed with the name Chen Loju in gold powder, his real name, rarely known to anyone. The moment Su Wangyan's fingertips touched the paper flowers, the characteristic coolness of pagoda wood spread through his entire body, and fragmented images flashed before his eyes. During last night's vigil, the bride paper doll in the window had suddenly turned its head, and the silver bracelet pinned to its chest was the dowry of his mother, Su Xunyang, which should have sunk to the river bottom with her 20 years ago. "Don't touch the bride's red," Chen Xiaozi's Linzhong words echoed in his ears, hoarse like burning paper. Su Wangyan looked up and saw that in the paper making shop's window. The paper doll in a red wedding dress was slowly turning its head, its empty eye sockets facing his direction. The Nuo opera mask embroidered on its skirt was missing a human tooth at the eye socket, a perfect match to the broken edge of the half mask in his pocket. The silver bracelet on the paper doll's chest glimmered faintly, inscribed Neitza with 1937 Yunyang, the year of Lin Yunyang's birth and the last time the twin fiends had been born in Yinshan. The village head said Uncle Chen was clutching this when he died. Lin Yunyang took an oil paper package from her white coat pocket, revealing half a human tooth with tiny incantations carved into its root. "It's the same as the one missing from your mother's mask." Her fingertips traced the ligneous birthmark on his left ring finger, the icy touch mixing with the dampness of the river god's vein. On the night of the coffin sinking 20 years ago, Uncle Chen's paper dolls were always carving your face, down to the exact Wenlu of the birthmark. Su Wangyan caught his breath. Memories of the Dragon Boat Festival in 1993 flooded back. At 7 years old, hiding behind the mountain god pagoda tree, he watched his mother, Su Xunyang, being dragged by villagers towards the Yinshui River. Her red wedding dress shimmered in the rain, and the coffin-shaped birthmark on the back of her neck slithered towards him like a white snake. 19 stone coffins floated up from the river bottom, and the eye sockets of the Nuo masks on the inner coffin lids reflected the lightning. Chen Xiaozi stood on the sacrificial altar, the drumstick in his hand carved with the same Wenlu as his birthmark, a symbol of the fragmented arms of the thousand-hand corpse god. The candles in the funeral hall suddenly flickered violently, and both long-burning lamps erupted in sparks. Su Wangyan's gaze swept across the offering table and noticed that Chen Xiaozi's portrait had been replaced with an old photo from 1937. In the photo, Chen Xiaozi wore a complete Nuo opera mask, standing under the mountain god pagoda tree, beside a young Lin Wenshen. At that time, the village head didn't have the pagoda tree root scar on the back of his neck, but his cuffs were embroidered with the same Nuo mask as the paper doll in the window. Thud. The coffin suddenly emitted a dull sound as if someone were knocking from the inside. Su Wangyan gripped the mask fragment tightly and heard Lin Yunyang's copper bells jingle urgently. It's the 3 knocks for soul summoning. Uncle Chen's spirit is demanding offerings. Her medical notebook slipped from her pocket, and Su Wangyan caught a glimpse of a page with a silver bracelet fragment pasted on it, beside which was written in red ink, "Twin Fiend's blood can break the sunken coffin curse." 1937 experiment record. Su Xunyang's fetus had abnormal blood type, suspected to be the host of the 1,000-hand corpse god's fragmented arms. Fetus ligneous left ring finger. Fetus B, coffin, shaped birthmark on the neck. When the second knot came, Su Wangyan finally noticed that what seeped from the coffin's fungxi was not tree sap, but fine pagoda, tree sawdust, identical to the suixia that fell from his birthmark. He reached out to touch the coffin lid, and the ligneous wenlu on his palm suddenly burned hot. Images of Chen Shazi's memories flashed before his eyes. Last night at midnight, the old man carved the 20th paper doll in the paper-making shop, blood seeping from the knife marks. The faces of those paper dolls were identical to his in his college graduation photo, with the same ligneous birthmark drawn on the left ring finger. "Open the coffin." Lin Yunyang suddenly spoke, her voice trembling with a tone uncharacteristic of a doctor. When the coffin lid was pushed open, both took a step back in unison. The coffin was empty, except for a pagoda, wood plaque inscribed with Su Wangyan 1993, Hobu human sacrifice, its edges oozing fresh red tree sap. The muwen of the plaque was an exact match to the birthmark on his left ring finger. And Chen Xiaozi, who should have been lying in the coffin, was now standing at the door of the paper-making shop. Half of a silver bracelet peeked out from under his eye patch, and the bracelet was engraved with a topographic map of Yinshan, the river's course matching the outline of the 1,000-hand corpse god's fragmented arms. 20 years, and you've finally come back to expose me. Chen Xiaozi's voice was like a water-logged rope, and he coughed up a fragment of a river lantern. When your mother's coffin was sunk in 1993, it wasn't her birth date carved inside the stone coffin. It was yours. He tore off the eye patch, and the silver bracelet embedded in his eye socket suddenly glimmered, reflecting a scene at the river bottom. Inside the 19th stone coffin, Su Xunyang's red wedding dress was embroidered with the symbol of the Twin Fiends, 2 overlapping coffin shapes with a ligneous birthmark in the center. And on her abdomen, there were 2 overlapping fetal heartbeat marks. Su Wangyan's temples throbbed violently, and the birthmark on his left ring finger began to spread like tree roots towards his wrist. He remembered Chen Xiaozi once saying that the clocks in Yunshan always stopped at 11:47, the exact moment the first river god sacrifice began in 1937, and the instant the twin fiends' souls split. At that moment, the old clock in the paper-making shop suddenly started ticking, its hand slowly pointing to this forbidden time. The pendulum was carved with the same Nuo opera bamboo as his mask fragment. "The village head is here." Lin Yunyang suddenly pressed his shoulder, her nails digging into his ligneous skin. Su Wangyan looked up and saw Lin Wanshan standing in the moonlight. The Nuo opera mask embroidered on his blue shirt's eye sockets was facing him, and the scar on the back of his neck glistened weightly in the rain, wriggling like a living thing. The old village head handed him a craft paper bag and spoke in the chant from the 1993 coffin sinking ritual. "Your mother's memorial tablet is on the 20th layer of the ancestral hall, in the same position as the 20th stone coffin." Inside the bag was half a yellowed opera ticket. The seat number for the 1937 Yunshan Nuo Opera Sacrifice was He Ren, row 20, seat 47. Corresponding to the position of the 20th stone coffin at the river bottom. Su Wangyan's fingertips brushed the ticket stub and found that the back was written in menstrual blood. The twin fiends, one inherits the god's vein, the other carries the Xionghuan. Destroy their eyes to sever the 1,000 hands. This was the ancient inscription at the bottom of the river god stele, but it had been covered by the village head's Nuo opera chants for 20 years. The edges of the Ziji still bore the marks of Zhijia scratches, as if someone had tried to destroy the secret. A sudden gust of wind rushed into the funeral hall, and the pagoda wood memorial tablet on the offering table toppled with a bang, revealing the Zhushazi on its back. Su Wangyan, the 20th human sacrifice. Su Wangyan's gaze swept past the tablet and noticed that beside Lin Yunyang's name was written, "Human Sacrifice Replaced," while his mother's name, Su Xunyang, was slowly emerging in the center of the tablet, written in the blood from his palm. Around her name were 19 small symbols, the outlines of the 19 stone coffins at the river bottom. Tomorrow night is the autumn equinox. As Lin Wanshan turned to leave, the hem of his blue shirt revealed half of a Nuo opera mask, the very one that had gone missing from Chen Xizi's coffin. The mountain ghost wedding sedan should carry a new sacrifice. His footsteps faded into the pagoda tree fragrance, but a more eerie sound remained, the hum of stone coffins breaking through the water from the direction of the Yinshui River. After 19 dull thuds in the window of the paper-making shop, 19 eyeless paper dolls turned their heads in unison, and blood flowing from their eye sockets wrote the word Guiwei on the glass. Each paper doll's cuff was embroidered with a Nuo mask from a different year. The cuff of the 1993 doll was torn in the same pattern as his mother's wedding dress during the coffin sinking. Su Wangyan stared at the window and suddenly realized that the paper doll's movements were perfectly synchronized, just like the human character formation of the stone coffins at the river bottom on the night of the 1993 sinking. The paper doll's fingers pointed towards the village entrance, where a paper-made sedan chair had Buzhiheshi appeared. The Jiaofu has had empty eye sockets but turned their heads in unison to look at him. A rustling sound of fabric came from inside the sedan chair, reminiscent of the sound of his mother's red wedding dress brushing against the stone coffin during the sinking. The Nuo mask embroidered on the sedan curtain's eye socket was tinned to the mask fragment in his pocket. "Brother Wangyan, look." Lin Yunyang suddenly pointed to the offering table. The banwan of water had Buzhiheshi turned blood red, and the surface reflected the canopy of the mountain god pagoda tree, its branches forming the shape of 1,000 hands, each finger pointing in his direction. Even more terrifying, fragments of Chen Xizi's memories emerged in the water. In 1937, the young Lin Wanshan knelt under the mountain god pagoda tree and exchanged 10 years of his life for his daughter Lin Yunyang to be spared from being a human sacrifice. The price was for the twin fiends in Su Xunyang's womb to become the new sacrifices, and their birth dates were exactly those of Su Wangyan and Lin Yunyang. As a drop of blood fell from his palm, Su Wangyan heard a noise coming from the basement of the paper-making shop. He pushed open the fuxiu door, and the staircase was scattered with newly carved paper doll limbs, each duankou inscribed with his birth date, the ink so fresh that it could be wiped off with his fingertips. In the center of the basement, 19 small stone coffins formed a circle. On the 20th stone coffin lay his mother's silver bracelet, and the words "Twin Sacrifice Replaceable" were now clearly visible on the inner chun. Inside the stone coffin was Kuda, the last section of the sunken coffin tune he had never seen before. Twin fiends return, 1,000 hands open, human sacrifice blood, offered to the mountain pagoda. Twin fiends blood, 1,000 eyes open. Uncle Chen said this is the secret scroll of the Luo family. Lin Yunyang Buzhiheshi stood behind him, holding a blood-stained notebook with the cover Yinshin Sacrifice Records 1937. The Luo family tomb guardians have protected the twin fiends for generations, but the village head sealed them with the mountain god pagoda tree. You and I have been Rongqi for the 1,000-hand corpse god's fragmented arms since birth. Your ligneous Wenlu is the mountain god's vein, and my birthmark is the river god's vein. She flipped through the notebook and showed a 1937 B-scan report with a red circle around it. Twin pregnancy. Fetus A. Ligneous left ring finger, resonating with the 1,000 hands left fragmented arm. Fetus B. Coffin. Shaped birthmark on the neck, corresponding to the river god's vein seal. Su Wangyan's gaze fixed on the B-scan report, and he suddenly remembered a fragment of his mother's diary. Wangyan's blood can activate the Nuo mask. Yunyang's tears can huanxing the river god's vein. You are the left and right eyes of the 1,000-hand corpse god, and also the keys to the seal. He felt the mask in his pocket, and the broken edge suddenly attracted to a silver ornament fragment under Lin Yunyang's white coat. Forming a complete Nuo mask, the scabbard of the knife with which Nuwa severed the thousand-hand corpse god's arms. The trickle in the eye socket was exactly the position of the thousand hands' left fragmented eye. The rain gradually stopped, and the human face of the mountain god pagoda tree became Goai Qingxi in the moonlight. Su Wangyan looked towards the village entrance, and the sedan curtain of the paper-made sedan chair suddenly xiankai a corner, revealing half of a red wedding dress. The ligneous birthmark embroidered on the chest was an exact match to the one on his left ring finger. The Jiaofues moved in perfect unison, starting to walk towards the paper-making shop. With each step, the lunquor of the stone coffins at the river bottom emerged on the ground. It's time to go to the ancestral hall. Lin Yunyang took his hand, the warmth of her palm mixing with the coldness of the river god's vein. Uncle Chin's empty coffin is a reminder that the sacrifice in 1937 was never just one person. The birthmark on the back of her neck now glowed faintly, resonating with the ligneous Wenlu on his left ring finger and casting the shadow of the twin fiends on the basement wall. Two overlapping coffin shapes with a thousand-hand pupil in the center. Deep within the pupil was reflected the image of the 20th stone coffin at the river bottom opening. Inside lay the red wedding dress of his mother that he had seen when he was 7 years old. At the heart of the wedding dress was embroidered the same ligneous Wenlu as his left ring finger. And in the center of the Wenlu was Qianzhe half a human tooth. The incantation on its root the same as the one Chen Xiaozi had sai into his pocket before his death. All the candles in the funeral hall suddenly went out. In the darkness, Su Wangyan heard Lin Yunyang whisper in his ear, her voice surprisingly similar to his mother's during the 1993 coffin sinking. "Wangyan, do you smell the pagoda tree fragrance? That's the mountain god counting our heartbeats." 26 years have passed. It's time for the twin fiends to Guiwei. Only then can the thousand-hand corpse god Chen Shui forever. When the moonlight illuminated the funeral hall again, Su Wangyan saw that the pagoda wood memorial tablet on the offering table had turned completely red. Beside the name Su Wangyan were Buzhiheshi added Lin Yunyang's birth date, and his mother's name, Su Xunyang, was drawn in blood beads in the center of the tablet, forming the lunquo of the thousand-hand corpse god. In the window of the paper-making shop, the paper doll in the red wedding dress slowly raised its hand. The silver bracelet on its chest glimmered, reflecting the image of the 20th stone coffin at the river bottom opening. Inside was the red wedding dress of his mother that he had seen when he was 7 years old. At the heart of the wedding dress was embroidered the same ligneous Wenlu as his left ring finger, and in the center of the Wenlu was Qianzhe half a human tooth. The incantation on its root the same as the one Chun Xiaozi had say into his pocket before his death. The end of this episode. But the story continues. Subscribe now for more thrilling chapters.